welcome to the English at Penrice YouTube channel. In this video we are going to be having a look at analysing writers' methods, in particular looking at structure today. We're going to be exploring JRR Tolkien's use of structure in an extract from The Hobbit. If you're thinking about your exams, this is going to be a particularly useful video for your revision for your language paper 1, question 3, which is the structure question, although it will help with picking up on structural features potentially for paper 1, question 4, the evaluation question 2. Okay, so this is the extract we're going to be having a look at today. This is the extract from The Hobbit. Pause the video now to read through it a couple of times before we begin to have a look at the structure. Okay, so in order to explore the structure of this particular extract, I've just posed some questions about each separate part of the extract. It's helpful to look at this particular source in terms of the 4 paragraphs that we have. But that's not always going to be the case, especially if you're presented with a longer source or extract to have a look at. You don't need to track it paragraph by paragraph. Think of the extract perhaps in sections rather than paragraph by paragraph. However, it just so happens that this extract does lend itself nicely to looking at the different paragraphs. So I've posed some questions about structural features themselves, encouraging you to delve into what happens with that particular structural feature and also the effect of that structural feature. So how does that structural feature create a certain mood or atmosphere? How does it link to previous or to later parts of the source or the extract? And what's the reader's reaction, or what does the reader learn from that particular part of the extract? Have a look now at the questions that I've posed. Pause the video and see what you would come up with in terms of your responses to those, and how you might start to think about putting those ideas together to form your extended answer to a question on structure, on how this source is structured to interest you as a reader. Okay then, let's have a look at what I came up with and we'll see if you had some similar ideas. So in terms of the very opening then, the key structural feature that I would like to talk about is how the writer establishes the setting at the very start of their extract. Sorry. The reader learns that we are reading about a very ominous, sinister and dark setting. This is quite a foreboding place, and the reader certainly gets a sense of unease at the thought of the characters embarking on a journey through this forest. Through various words and phrases that are used at the very start of the extract, talking about the start, the opening, that structure, rather than just word choices, we have a sense that there's a lack of space, life and freedom in this setting, which might pose problems later on for the characters. And there's an impending attack hinted at too. So there's various references to being trapped or being hurt in some way. That might foreshadow later negative experiences for the characters. And then as we move into the second part of the source, in terms of structure, this ominous mood is developed through description. So development of an idea as we move through the extract. This sense of being trapped and confined is really intensified at this point. There's no escape, seemingly, for these characters. And we also have a motif of harm or killing emerging through this idea of the sunbeams stabbing down. This motif especially leads the reader to feel an increasing sense of unease. We worry for the safety of the characters here already. And moving on to this third part of the extract, there's a switch in focus here, a key structural feature, away from a description of the forest itself and the trees to the creatures and the noises. And they're, again, really, really unsettling. Even though we've switched the focus, we still have this sense of unease as readers. The squirrels are described as black, which, we know through colour symbolism can often symbolise death and darkness. We also have the dark, dense cobwebs. There's a sense of uncertainty as well. The character's not able to see exactly what's making these odd noises. And then once more, this sense of being trapped intensifies further here. So we've got this real progression of this sense of the characters being unable to escape this situation that they're in. And that's through this sense of darkness, being unable to see a way out, but also these cobwebs that are referenced here. Cobwebs obviously being used by spiders to trap their prey. And then finally, to look at the ending. Tolkien switches here from external description of the forest to the internal feelings of the characters. And at the very end here, we have a sense that the evil nature of the setting, this sinister element of the forest, is actually impacting upon the characters themselves and how they feel. There's this reference to them hating the forest. There, at the end as well, is an increasing sense of a weakening of the energy of the characters, of the optimism of them, and maybe even the life seeping away and being drained by this sinister setting that they're in. Again, we've got a reference to killing, this idea of being suffocated slowly by the forest, and that really consolidates that motif of harm and killing that's established earlier on in the extract. And again, we as readers fear for the safety of the characters. We wonder whether they will ever get out of this forest alive. Okay, so let's have a look at how I would put all of my ideas together to write a response to this question on how the writer uses structure to interest you as a reader. So just reminding myself that what I'd like to do in order to answer a question like this is to focus on the structural methods, the structural features the writer uses in this extract, in the source, but also the effect of those. So yes, what interests me, but also what mood or atmosphere is created. What links can I make between different parts of the extract? What do I learn or wonder or feel as a reader? That's looking at the effect of this structure. Okay, so what I'd like to do when I start is include an overview sentence. So looking at the source as a whole and how the writer uses structure throughout the whole of their extract and the general effect of that. So my overview sentence is as follows. Throughout the extract, Tolkien creates an ominous mood and a sense of impending attack, which leaves his readers fearing for the welfare of his characters. Okay, so just try to summarise how Tolkien's used structure to create a certain effect. And then I'm going to go into looking at how the extract opens, so how it begins. So that's a key structural feature. Really important to talk about the opening and its effect when you've got a question on structure. So the writer immediately establishes a sinister setting with his opening description of the gloomy forest. The beginning of the extract instantly creates a sense of impending doom for the characters, with a sense that hope is already lost, symbolised by the light already being far behind the characters. Okay, and I've highlighted here where I've picked up on the key structural feature that's being used by the writer. So immediately establishing a sinister setting, the opening description of the forest, and the beginning of the extract. The opening, the beginning, that's a key structural feature. Got to make sure I'm referencing it when I'm answering a question on structure. But I've also delved into the effect of it. So it's creating a sense of impending doom. It's creating a sense that hope is already lost. And I've also used evidence from the text as well. The description of the sinister setting, description of the gloomy forest, and the symbolism of the light being far behind the characters. Okay, moving on. The next part of my answer moves on to part 2 of the extract. This sense of foreboding continues as the extract progresses, and the subsequent description, so the next description of the increasing darkness, again reinforces a sense of optimism being replaced with fear and unease. This is underlined further with an emerging motif of harm and killing. Here, the light being described as stabbing down, a violent image which relates closely to the earlier reference to the ivy strangling the trees. The increasing hints at killing leave the reader wondering whether the characters will experience the same fate in this forest. Okay, so again, I've picked up on some key structural features. The progression of an idea, the description that comes after another description to intensify the effect. And as well, I've picked up on a motif here, which is a key structural feature too. And again, I've tried to talk about the effect of these structural features. So this sense of pessimism and fear that's emerging, this idea that violence and killing and harm is being referenced more and more often as we read through the extract, and also the effect on the reader as we wonder whether these references to killing and attack actually foreshadow the character's own demise, perhaps. Okay, so that's the opening half of my answer to this question. Pause the video now to have a go at an answer yourself. You can use parts or all of my answer if you'd like, or you can have a go yourself, or you can finish off my answer if you'd prefer. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Do subscribe to the English at Penrice YouTube channel for lots more videos to support your English language and literature revision.